you need truth and life, here is the Brother Leon Show. You better recognize.
What's going on, listeners? This is your boy, Brother Leon, and you are tuning into another episode of the Brother Leon Show. So, hey, let's go on in here. Let's talk. So, to celebrate the end, the beginning, the end, and the forever journey of Pride, I wanted to take this time to talk about Pose, talk about the cast of Pose, but also talk about Bill Cosby. So I'll probably do that towards the end. And so the one thing that I want you guys to understand and know, my stance on the LGBTQ plus community, I stand as an ally. I stand as a Christian ally. Because for too many times, there has been a great divide between the black church or the church universal and the LGBTQ plus community. So I've taken up the stance of being an ally, especially for those who are of color, especially black people, because the one thing that I want you guys to understand and know is that the power of whiteness gives those in the LGBTQ community who are white, it offers them a level of protection. So I'm not trying to say that I hate white people. I'm not trying to say that I hate on the white brothers and sisters of the LGBTQ plus community. What I'm trying to say is I'm putting an emphasis on black and people of color. Because the crazy thing about it is that we see the atrocities that are happening with our trans women being murdered. And they are being murdered at a high rate, and they're mainly women of color. And so, I love the fact that there are celebrity voices, there are activist voices who are bringing it to the forefront, and I so appreciate it. And the crazy thing about it is that, as an ally, I look where I am and I just say, hey, I need to be a little bit more educated on how to effectively advocate for the LGBTQ plus community in light of scripture and in light of just human kindness. Because it doesn't take anything to be kind. And so at the end of the day, it's about respect. It's about them just wanting to live their life just like everybody else. But the crazy thing about it is that there is so much homophobia, fear, insecurity, xenophobia concerning the LGBTQ plus community. And I totally get it. Because it was the same type of thing that was happening to us black people. And there were black people who were in the LGBTQ plus community that stayed in the closet. Some of them got out the closet. There were definitely black gay men. But at the end of the day, we got to get past the fear to see a person's humanity. And I'm getting sick and tired of, love the person, hate the sin. And the crazy thing about it is that it only applies to the LGBTQ plus community at large. And the crazy thing about it is that nobody ever talks about the sin of hatred. Nobody ever talks about the sin of fear. It's just the sin of homosexuality. And we have the audacity to say that the Bible says that this is an abomination towards God. You want to know what else is an abomination of God? Fear is an abomination of God. And yet we are okay with homophobia in our churches and in our lives. We're okay with it. Now, granted, I'm not going to lie. There's a big debate about trans women in sports. And I ain't going to lie. I'm on the fence with it, to be honest. Because I totally get what both sides are saying. And then most recently, I saw on TV, no, it wasn't on TV, it was on social media of a person who changed their race to look more like Asian. And I'm like, oh my God. It's starting. It is definitely, it started before, but it's really starting now. Because now if you could turn yourself Asian, who says that you can't turn yourself white? Who says you can't turn yourself black? Who says you can't turn yourself into anything? Because the crazy thing about it, just because your birth certificate says one thing, that don't necessarily mean that your death certificate is going to say that. Or your marriage certificate. Or your license. And so, at the end of the day, the one thing that we have to get to is that we have to respect people. And I look at the fact of, calling people by their pronouns and everything like that. I totally get that. But at the end of the day, we got to deal with this whole thing about the fear. Seriously. What is the fear? Because I look at it from a church aspect, because it's always, hellfire, damnation, and brimstone. But I'm not going to lie, man. If you looked at that episode of Pose, Billy Porter's episode where he went back home to tell his mom, you can see the truth. The attitude of the church at times, and why we have lost so many gifted people in the LGBTQ plus community. Why? Why have we allowed those gifts to leave the church and go into the world? Why? Why couldn't we accept them the way that they are? Why is it that they ended up having to leave to see value, to see greatness, to see family in a community that that they weren't even in a strange community, but they were in the church? If you look at most of the cast that was in Pose, they have religious backgrounds. Most of the activists, religious backgrounds. Laverne Cox, religious background. Hallie Shire, religious background. A.R. Jackson, religious background. Billy Porter, religious background. And countless many others come from the church. The church couldn't keep them. The church despised them. And at the end of the day, the crazy thing is, I remember what Jesus said. Whosoever cometh unto me, I will in no wise cast out. But that don't count in church when you gay. That don't count in church. Because we have this adage, love the sinner, hate the sin. But the crazy thing is that love covers a multitude of sins. That's what the Bible says. But we cherry pick what we want to choose to believe and follow. We don't ever want to talk about the fearful shall have their part in the lake of fire. We don't want to talk about that, but we condemn our gay brothers and sisters, trans brothers and sisters to hell. And we have the audacity to say, God didn't make you that way, or God didn't call you to that. My question is, what about the intersex people? What about the people who are labeled hermaphrodite? Because I hear one minister say that God is giving you your gender from birth. What if you were born with both sets of genitalia? So is it a sin? Is it a sin that if you were born with both genitalia, you decide you want to be male or female? Is it a sin? Is it a sin to make up that choice because you were born with both? Nobody can answer that question. Because if you decide that you're not going to go with the dominant gene or with the dominant hormone, then that's your right. That's your choice. But you got so many people, man, that cookie cut and say the litmus test is this, when it's not. So at the end of the day, I just look at it like this. Yeah, we could talk about holiness all day long, but until you get that hatred out your mouth, you can't talk about God's holiness. And we are not holy. We are human. We are called to walk in holiness, but God made us humans. God made us humanity. He made us male and female. That's what God made us. But at the end of the day, I look at it like this. If a person chooses, that's their choice. And one thing that I know about life is a journey. And to take and judge somebody where they are right now, you don't know the end of the journey. You don't know the beginning of the journey. You don't know the middle of the journey. So I appreciate my brothers and sisters in the LGBTQ plus community. I also appreciate my brothers and sisters that have walked out of the community as well. Because their life is a story, it is a testimony of change. But the one thing that I want you to get from this is that the one thing that all stories have in common is that they have that truth. The truth that a person has come into their fullness of homosexuality. The truth that another person says, hey, God is taking me out of that. That's their truth. And we have to respect it because it's the truth that makes people free. Free for what? Free to live. And I can't sit up here and judge a person because of who they sleep with and their type of sex. I look at it like this. You won't go to hell if you get the hell out of people's bedroom. Hell will not be in your mind. And the crazy thing about it is that if you would just look at the people and see them as people, then maybe you will see them differently. If you saw them with Christ's eyes, then maybe you will see them differently. Because there's definitely a great divide. And there's definitely a civil war at times. Even those who have come out of the community and are professing Christians. Now, some of them have the audacity to attack the community in which they came out of. I'm like, nah, brother and sister, we need to show love, compassion, because that was you. We can't forget from where we come from. So that's my thing. I stand in the middle of the road. But the one thing I will say is this. You have to ask yourself, man, why? Why so many gifts leave the church? And not even in the LGBTQ community. What about the gifts, that were in church, but now they singing R&B? Seriously. So many people, man, they have come against those in different communities because, they trying to get your kids. Man, please. Ain't nobody trying, man, please. These celebrities want money. Ain't nobody trying to get your kids. I look at it like this. When it comes to the music and stuff like that, instead of you attacking the artists, why don't you attack the distributors? Because it's not the artists. It's the distributors. It's those that put the product out. And that's the God knows truth. Man, people was having a fit with Lil Nas. But the crazy thing about it, it's the same people that was okay with, Madonna and Britney Spears kissing. Same people. Same people. So, my thing is, we gotta stop judging. And the crazy thing is, the Bible says that there is no new thing under the sun. If it was shocking all back then, seeing Madonna kiss Britney Spears, then what you think the shock value is now? Madonna was nothing but shock value. And you think Lil Nas ain't supposed to be shock value? He trying to make money just like the next man. Matter of fact, when I see him, I see Billy Porter. And that's the God knows truth. But at the end of the day, we gotta let people live. I'm serious. We gotta let people live. Y'all was okay with Kanye West and his crazy antics and his clothes and stuff like that. And then we putting labels on Jay-Z, saying he's a Mason. Like, man, the church gets me at times because as much as we are called to be witnesses, we label people real fast. But the Bible says, do not judge anything before the time. And so you don't know the time of a person's life. You don't know the time in which they're going through. You don't know the time of their journey. So at the end of the day, it's like, I have discernment. God is giving me the right. Nah, man, please. God is giving you that right. Well, my question is, look, if God is giving you the right, and the only thing that you see is homosexuality, something wrong with your vision. You need to get the bat out your eye so you can get the speck out of your brother's eye. Yeah, I said it. And I'm going to keep on saying it because I look at it like this. We can't sit up here and talk about the homosexual community without talking about the church community. And I'm like, look, if y'all want to tell them to get the hell out the bed and stop laying up with folks, then you need to tell some of these preachers the same thing. Stop having kids out of wedlock. Stop having a body count. Stop having jump offs. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. But it ain't right. So I look at it like this. If we're going to have pride in truth. Have pride in grace. Because grace and truth came by Jesus Christ. Have pride in love. Jesus said, by this, talking about love, by this shall all men know that you are my disciples indeed, if you have love one towards another. So that's the one thing that we have to do. We have to have love towards one another. And a lot of times we don't. And so something got to give. I'm telling you right now, something has to give. Because if not, we're going to be lost. We're going to be lost. And the crazy thing about it is that we're going to be looking for the next generation, and the next generation is not going to be there. There will not be a sword to pass to the next generation until we get in line. Until we be truthful and honest about ourselves, about the role that the church has played. Because in all honesty, I was thinking about the ministry, Truth and Life Urban Ministry, and I was like, wow, Lord, there is a disconnect between the modern church and activists. Because activists feel as though that the church has been responsible for some of the things that have happened to the black, brown community, people of color community for generations. It wasn't like that with Martin Luther King, but that was down south. But when you come up north here, Martin Luther King really didn't have that much pull. But nowadays is that what we see when it comes to religious and Christianity, religious views in Christianity, people feel as though that church is the biggest scam out here. And to a certain degree, I believe it. And I'm in it. Because the crazy thing about it, it's about, okay, who you going to buy into? And when you begin to see some of the tricks and some of the schemes, and when you begin to see some of the voices that are out there and some of the things that the church has been vocal about and some of the things that the church has stayed silent on, then you have to ask yourself, is this really for me? Because I really look at it like this. If you can't make your mind up about church right now in the midst of COVID and in the election and re-election of Donald Trump, then something's wrong. Because we saw a whole lot of stuff. One just black, one just white. It was all around the board. Seriously, it was all around the board, and we saw it. And so the one thing that I want you guys to understand and know is that we have to make our calling in election sure. Not only make our calling in election sure, but make sure that you're going to stand for something. And no matter where the people are going, no matter what, whoever says what, don't matter. You stand for what you believe in. I'm going to stand for what I believe in. Because I feel as though that the church should enhance people, not slaughter people. It shouldn't be a pyramid scheme. Seriously, it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be a spiritual pyramid scheme. If you get to the top, you are son or daughter. And you got to give your way up to that level. It shouldn't be that way. Because I don't see that in the Bible. Seriously, I don't. I don't see it in the Old Testament. I definitely don't see it in the New Testament. Now, granted, there is a cost. But should that cost be a dollar amount? Should it be faith? Should it be works? Or should it be dollars? That's the question I'm going to leave you with. But let's go over here. I am so glad that Mr. Bill Cosby has been released from prison. Now, granted, the one thing that I did not like about this case, I will say this, is the statute of limitations. And the crazy thing is, it went over 30 years. 30 years. I will say that. But before I go in, let me just say this. I do not believe that we should make light of the trauma of our women, the abuse of our women. We should not make light of that. And also, in the case, we need to protect our women. We need to have more legislation that will have protection for our women. And I do not make light of sexual abuse. I do not make light of none of that. Sexual trauma, I'm not making light of that. I believe that everyone should stand for our women and protect our women. I am for that. So don't get it twisted. But I think the one thing that I want you to understand and know is this, is that when it came to Bill Cosby, he was doing stuff, with the Fat Albert Show, with the Cosby Show, with the Different World. He has done a lot of work. I mean, not only putting people through college, giving people jobs, helping people financially. Bill Cosby has done a lot. But the crazy thing is that he is a man. And I'm not going to sit up here and try to make excuses for him. Now, granted, I look at it like this. We can say that he's guilty, but the courts have called him innocent, and the courts saw that there were holes in the case that was against him. And he had the means to fight that case and take it all the way to the Supreme Court. And so you can't get mad at that because he used the legal system that tried to railroad him, and he won. But look at the countless others who don't have those means or resources to do what he did. And so at the end of the day, it was a railroad from the door, but he took it. And the crazy thing about it, he can't get that time back. But you had a hard up DA that was after him saying, yo, elect me and I will give you Bill Cosby. And then the crazy thing about it is that when it went to court, they changed the rules. And one of the DAs said, we don't have enough to prosecute. So they changed the rules. How you going to change the rules? You change the rules because you can. And then you feel as though that, okay, it's a done deal. But then you never think that a person is going to, fight back. They was thinking it was the end. Nah. And he knew he was innocent. They tried to offer him parole. Nah, I'm not going to admit to nothing. I'm innocent. I don't blame him. Because there's been many men who have been convicted, who have been labeled, and come to find out they've been innocent. Through DNA. Through the testimony of others. The exonerated 5. Or the exonerated 9. I don't know how many of them is it. Might be 5, might be 9. I don't know. But they made a movie about it on Netflix. The way they see us. And so the one thing that I want you guys to understand and know is this. Is that, when you talk about court cases and dealing with the judicial system, a lot of times we as black people don't win. Because if you look at the Derek Chauvin case, man, please. His whiteness protects him. That's why he got that sentence. 22 years. And you on film killing a black person. And all you get is 22 years. So his whiteness protects him. So the one thing that I want you to know from the door, I'm not making light, but I am glad that Mr. Cosby is home. I am glad that he had a legal team that did not give up. I am glad for that. Because at the end of the day, I'm like, yo, man, if y'all wanted a real case, if y'all really tried it the way it should have been tried, you should have tried it the right way. I'm serious. It wasn't like you had Bill Jackson. No, you got Bill Cosby. You think he ain't gonna fight back? You think that the money that he has, y'all think y'all burned that up? But the crazy thing about it is that you have to look at now, even though he may be a black man and a celebrity, you have to look at the fact that your blackness, your celebrity, your money doesn't even protect you if they out to get you. And we saw that with OJ. I'm serious. Yeah, you might have got off here, but yo, they was setting you up for something else and you ended up doing some time. And they thought that they was going to do the same thing to Bill Cosby. He ended up spending like 2.5 years, 3 years almost, when they said he should have got 10. But the one thing that I want you guys to understand and know is that it was not right. And if you were there at the trial, then you will see it. I'm serious. I can't wait for the transcripts to come out. So then that way we can see the whole truth. I'm serious. So I'm going to play a clip right here, and it's from the press conference. So hey, hold tight. We getting ready to do this right fast.
We love you, Mr. Cosby! Mr. Cosby! We love you, sir! We love you, sir! We knew it! We knew it! We knew it! Don't mess with Bill!
Can you take the pole? Can you take the pole inside? You can take this inside if you want. Okay.
No, right here.
Hey. 204.
Okay, everybody. We want to thank the Pennsylvania State Supreme Court, as I mentioned earlier, for reviewing Mr. Cosby's appeal, but also seeing the light, seeing the lies, seeing that Mr. Cosby had immunity. This U.S. citizen who served our country in the Navy, not just in the Navy, but he served our country in so many different ways through his celebrity, him and Mrs. Cosby. Mr. Cosby has always used his celebrity, his name, his likeness, to uplift women. This is a man who refused to perform at the White House with Nixon. Nixon put him on a accompanist list in the 60s, along with so many other great names like Dick Gregory, Jane Fonda. How could a man who was being watched by the FBI every day be raping and drugging women in the 60s or 70s, especially a black man? Today, innocence came to Mr. Cosby with the help of these wonderful attorneys.
Yes.
To his right, you will see Ms. Jennifer Bunjean. She argued the appeal. To my left, you see Brian Perry.
Yes.
To Brian's left, Ashley Cohen. And then you have Kelly Cohen. These are women and men who from all walks of life. As I said earlier, James Brown, Man of Song, is a man's world. There would be nothing without a woman and girl. Mrs. Cosby was that woman. For 57 years, the queen, the matriarch of the Cosby family, who fought for his vindication, who said he would be vindicated. And today, on this hot day, this is a hot verdict for us that we will forever cherish, because we got one of the greatest, or the greatest entertainer alive today, Mr. Bill Cosby, this great American citizen, this American treasure, this icon, with us today. I want to allow Ms. Bunjean to say a few words. Ms. Bunjean?
Yes, obviously we are thrilled to have Mr. Cosby home. He served 3 years of his unjust sentence.
Too long.
He did it with dignity and principle, and he was a mentor to other inmates. He was really, as I say, doing the time. The time was not doing him.
He's a classy man.
And I want to say this about the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. They demonstrated that they were impervious to the court of public opinion, which, frankly, the lower courts were not. Mr. Cosby, we knew all along he never should have been prosecuted for this. He had every right to rely on the prosecutor's word. And they pulled the rug out from underneath him because of politics, because of the court of public opinion, and that is not how our system should operate. When that happens, there cannot be a just sentence. And if there had been a just verdict and a just sentence, we wouldn't be here fighting. But there was not a just sentence and not a just verdict. And I think it's really important that we keep our eye on the ball, that our Constitution is sacred, and that we need to uphold it at all times. And I'm glad that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court saw it the way we did.
Brian Perry.
I'm very proud of the team that we put together. Very proud to be part of this case. We always thought that eventually this is where it would end up. Mr. Cosby and I had many, many talks over the last couple of years. I predicted it, and we're here. It's a good day for the Cosby family.
Mr. Cosby, how...
I'm going to stop right there. Because the crazy thing about all of this is that at the end of the day, they knew. Politics was involved. He thought he was going to have immunity to a certain degree, and then they changed up. And one thing that you have to realize, we even seen this with the election. You can't sit up here and say, stuff without proof, without credible proof. And the crazy thing is that in the court of public opinion, the one thing that a lot of people play on is emotion. They play on that emotion in the court of public opinion. And it wins to a certain degree. But at the end of the day, what happens in the court of public opinion cannot happen in the court of law. Law is the rule. And even though they were saying about, counting ballots during the election, and that, certain communities' votes should not count and everything like that, it was a whole lot of play and a whole lot of stuff in the court of public opinion that led up to January 6th. And we saw what happened with that. But the crazy thing about it is that when they went into a court of law, nobody had proof. And so this right here, because the court didn't do what it was supposed to do, it did not honor its word, that's why this happened. And the Supreme Court is like, we're not going to give in to public opinion. And we see that he did not receive a fair trial. And the reason why that is because the lower courts played on public opinion, even to the degree of getting a new DA. So at the end of the day, you can't sit up here and be mad at Bill. Man, be mad at the people that messed up the case. Because if it was a solid case, he would still be in jail. But it wasn't a solid case. So you can't get mad at the man. I think the one thing that we have to really do is we really have to examine circumstances and situations, because I look at it like this. You pulled out over 60 people and only one of them, you only got one of them went to trial? 60? And the crazy thing about all of this, I look at it like this. As popular as he was in the 80s, if all of this was happening, how come it didn't come out then? You can't sit up here and say he's that powerful, because his blackness, and even though he may have buku money, it's not going to protect him. I'm serious. You can't even sit up here and say culture. But at the end of the day, I'm glad that justice worked in his favor. Because at the end of the day, I'm like, I can't believe it. And there's people right now, I'm like, they mad over the Bill Cosby verdict. But the crazy thing about it, man, they still celebrate Michael Jackson. And Michael Jackson has stuff with him too. But nobody, wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about Woody Allen. Nobody wants to talk about the father from Seventh Heaven. Seriously. And everybody talking about his image. I look at it like this. Bill Cosby is Bill Cosby. He is not Heathcliff Huxtable. He is a man. And every man has his faults. And the crazy thing about all of this is that we will sit up here and take and forget about everything that he has done because of this one thing. And the crazy thing about it, I look at the Catholic Church. Look at what the Catholic Church has hidden. Look at what they paid off. Look at the priests that they moved. Look at the nuns. Look at the secrets. But you still go to Catholic Church. Some of you do. I can't say all. Same thing in the Protestant church. Same thing in the black church. But at the end of the day, it's about one of those things. We have to decide how we want to live, who we going to be. But I look at it like this. Justice is going to roll and the truth is going to come out. And that's the God knows truth. So at the end of the day, he done served his time. He done got vindicated. And that's the end. Hopefully that's the end. So I look at it like this. Hey, I'm thankful he was able to get off. But the one thing that I want you guys to understand and know is that I get the whole Me Too movement. I get the whole feminist movement. I get the whole womanist movement. But in my personal opinion, I don't feel as though that those feminist movements, those womanist movements, those Me Too movements are for black women. I don't believe that. I'm serious. And we can say that, yo, he was up here, clowning the black community and everything. Man, please, everybody is clowning the black community. They make our women look like strippers. Every woman is supposed to be stripping and twerking all over the place. Our men are supposed to be pimps. There is no more partnership. There is no more man, please. They're making our community look lame. It ain't Bill. It ain't even the gays. It's us. It's what we allow. It's the art. It's what we allow. It's what we put before our eyes. It's what we put in our ears. And then we have the audacity to try to say that's life, and it's not. It's somebody's interpretation, and they don't even live like that. And that's the one thing you got to sit up here, man, and look at. Man, please, half of these people don't live the way that you think they living. I'm serious. It's a facade. But everybody want to talk about Bill and talk about him talking about pound cake. Man, please. Man, we need to have the truth be told to us. And no, we may not like some of the words and some of the attitude that comes with it, but at the end of the day, I'm like, yo, man, it's shit that we need to do. Now, granted, is it all us? Nah. Some of the stuff that has happened to us, it has happened because of the conditions we were left. When you start looking at gentrification, when you start looking at our neighborhoods are not the way that they are for just because black people move. No, it was strategic. Because when you take resources out of a development, we take resources out of a neighborhood, resources that could better them, and then we lower the housing values. And then the crazy thing about the lower housing values, the schools ain't got jack. And then we put in there nothing but renters, and then we put in there, subsidized housing. What you think you gonna get? Seriously. And then they want to talk about black on black crime. How come you don't never see or hear about black on black crime in upper black neighborhoods? You don't hear that because it's a myth. Crime is about proximity. Crime is also about economics. Economics is involved. So yeah, you're going to see it. The crazy thing about it, you got other communities that will move into those communities and take the rest of the resources out. So that's why you can have a Family Dollar, a Chinese store, a liquor store. And they're not even black owned. 3-4 generations. Mr. Habib been selling liquor to black people for years. And I'm just exaggerating, but you see where I'm getting at. Probably the only black business you probably see in a black neighborhood will probably be a hair shop and a barber shop. And then the crazy thing about it, the way things are, if you don't manage your money right, you're going to be doing hair and cutting out your daggone house. So we got to make the change. But I'm going to tell you, man, I'm happy for Bill Cosby. It does not mean that I'm making light of the victims, because I feel as though that every victim needs to be healed, every victim needs to be heard, every victim needs to be restored. But in the same token, I look at, he was a victim as well. He was a victim of this crooked ass court. And that's the God knows truth. So, I stand with our sisters, but I also stand with Mr. Cosby. I stand with the LGBTQ plus community. Because I'm not given to extremes. I can sit in the middle. I can stay in the middle. Because I believe if we are in the middle, then we can be a bridge. If we are in the middle, then we can make up the difference. If we are in the middle. So I'm pretty much done. That's just my little rant for the day. Pride that he has endured it at his age. They thought he was going to go to jail and die. But God turned that thing around. You're going to have a testimony. Wait. You just wait. Because there's a whole lot of people that wrote him off. There's a whole lot of people that talk judgment on that man. But at the end of the day, you can't sit up here and talk about him and not talk about the court. You can't do that. You're going to have to talk about the court if you're going to talk about him. So, hey, I don't know what I'm calling this episode. I'll be honest. Oh, God. But it's all good. You guys be blessed. I love y'all.
Walk in the truth that makes you free every day. Follow Brother Leon on all social media outlets.